Excellent. Okay, good morning. Familiar faces. We have a couple new faces like in the room. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Dixie Heinisch.
Nice.
I tried to join via Zoom, but
We were having issues.
Yeah.
Yes. So we've got that figured, like it's been interesting getting this all set up. And yet I think I've got it now where there's no password, but I have to like watch and admit people. So we've got like,
it's more difficult for people to go Plaza and here or join Zoom than
it's kind of, I don't know, we've got some traveling folks that'll travel to the plaza. And we've got people that then will just get on Zoom for depending what their schedule is. But we've had people that have been going back and forth. And the plaza is pretty cool to hang out at. If I say so myself. I go back and forth every day and it's not so bad. But how about in the back? I don't think that I've
No, it's my first time also in person. I tried to join it, but it didn't work out.
yes, we will. So I think I have it worked out for the rest of this month on the calendar and what she put in your daily digest here at Overland Park. Okay. That email that you're getting. So you should be able to click without a password and sign in. And then I just have to watch to let you in. And then for next month, obviously there's lessons learned and we'll make sure not to have the same issue next month. Okay, so what do you guys know about when you go to a final walkthrough? What do you think you're supposed to do as, let's start as a buyer's agent when you go to that final walkthrough? So make sure things are still working or the utilities are on and things are in the state that it should be in. Yeah.
But nothing major has changed, on a big hole or red line on the carpet or.
Yeah, so we're maintaining the same condition as there's no red wine on the carpet, there's no holes in the wall. Anything else for the final walkthrough? Yep, exactly. Check for repairs, make sure that those are completed. Anyone else have any thoughts of what else? They should be on because it's responsibility. It's in the contract that the seller maintain the utilities until closing, and then the buyers just switch them over into their names as of possession. So if they're getting possession after closing, then the seller is supposed to keep them in their name for that time. So yes, utilities should be on for that. Okay, so a couple things about final walkthroughs. You guys are absolutely correct. It is to go and make sure that the condition of the home has not changed since you went through and viewed it with your clients. Another thing is to make sure that repairs are done and done to the satisfactory of your client, the buyer. Another piece is to make sure, depending on when possession is going to be, okay, so that adds challenges to it because some of it's too to make sure that the sellers got out everything they're supposed to get out. And sometimes it's like the not fun part of a final walkthrough. So your final walkthrough, it's going to be based on your contract and setting expectations there with your client. So if you do allow the seller to hold possession after closing, you may go to a final walkthrough and nothing's moved. All of their stuff is still in place, even if they're supposed to be out in 4 days. It's your job to remain calm, but also to say, hey, what is the plan here? When are the movers coming? What's the story? Some people do have themselves getting packed by professionals and they can do that pretty quickly. But note that there may be a time that you're going to a final walkthrough and you're not able to verify that everything's going to be out, right? If they are giving possession at time of closing, then your expectation would be that they're pretty close to being out. But at your final walkthrough, if closing, you're doing your final walkthrough typically the day before. Sometimes you might do it 2 days before. Again, you're scheduling that through the listing agent and talking to them about what works best. But if you're going even the night before or the day before, so let's say your closing is scheduled for 10 a.m. on Thursday, and you reach out to the listing agent and say, hey, we want to do our final walkthrough at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. When you go at 4 o'clock on Wednesday, everything may not be out. They might still be cleaning. They might still be getting a few things out. Note that that's not common or unheard of. What I would recommend as a buyer's agent is that you're taking photos of anything that is still there, especially if it's like, hey, it looks like they think they took everything, and yet there's a crib under the stairs in the basement. Are we going to somebody going to come pick that up? Or there's a bunch of old paint that doesn't match this house. Is someone going to come get that? Kind of a thing. So whether it's what's left in the house or if it's around some of those repairs that we'll talk about in just a second, photos are very helpful in picking up the phone and being a problem solver with your fellow co-op agent is the name of the game, okay? Because they want to get it closed just as much as you want to get it closed, Okay.
I have a question, if
Sure.
I can ask. We've experienced having bought and sold houses over the years, and I'm a new agent, but our experience has generally been, except when we bought a new home, a new build, that many times you go in and it's really dirty, like it's supposed to be maybe broom clean. But it's not. And it's been, like I said, a few years. So I'm just curious, like, what is the kind of, what are the expectations? I know a seller or a buyer could always request that it be professionally cleaned, but let's say they don't, then what's the expectation for our buyers to see if it's supposed to be just broom clean, or is that even the standard anymore?
Second, I know I messed stuff up, guys. Give me 1 second, Serena.
No problem. No problem.
Who would have thought I would mess it up?
Pretty sure that it was a possibility.
Ah, it's like you're on the team. Okay, when I hear, what should I say, wall plate?
Yeah.
Okay, can we hear, can you talk, can we hear you now?
Can you hear me? Or I can
Yes.
hear you?
Yes.
Is that better?
It's so much better. We can actually turn your volume down a little.
Oh,
We can hear you
was
fine.
I screaming?
No, it was through my laptop. So now you're up on the big screen and everybody can
Oh, no.
hear
Oh,
and see better. But okay, so great question on cleaning. And let's go ahead and talk about that for just a second. What I am going to recommend is, again, it is a time in which you need to know your client. Okay. So you need to understand that when you're showing houses, I had one client that would call houses crusty. And she'd say, oh man, this one's really crusty. Like, ooh, what she meant by that was that like the baseboards were dirty and I thought to myself, when I write her contracts, we are going to make it very clean or, clear the expectation the house be professionally cleaned, kind of a thing, right? So it's a lot of it's setting expectations, and some of that too is setting expectations prior to the final walkthrough. If you can believe it, there's an email template that I send to both the listing agent and to my sellers in that situation to make sure that they're clear. But the contract greens, broom swept clean. Okay, Serena. So the idea being is it's not supposed to be spick and span, like perfectly and clean. Like, will it be most of the time? Yes, because people have pride in their home. Is there going to be a time that you're going to have a closing, you're going to go and you're going to be like, wow, they didn't wipe out any of the cabinet drawers and they didn't clean anything, right? Oftentimes, again, it's where you're going to be a team player and you're going to work together with the listing agent. And usually it's a very nice, kind phone call to the listing agent to say, hey, Sarah, we're over at the house and they've got just about everything out there. It does look like there's a little bit of extra wood here in the garage. I'll send you a picture of that. Unfortunately, they didn't really do a great job of cleaning. And my client's expectations were that it was going to be a little cleaner than it is. And then as a good negotiator, guess what you're going to do? Be quiet. Let the silence hit Sarah. And Sarah's going to go, oh, I am so sorry. I know they were really rushed and blah, 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 blah. Like, let me give them a call and see if they're planning on still going over there. Who knows, y'all? Like, they may be planning on going over after work to do that final clean because you're there Wednesday night and they'd already moved all the things out and they planned their week out and they're going to go do the final clean. It may be as simple as that. And you need to remind your client that we got to stay calm so we know what's really going on. Okay. And it may, Sarah may say, oh, you know what? She told me earlier today that they are going to go over and clean tonight. So she's going to clean it tonight. Don't worry about it. I'll make sure to swing by, make sure it's cleaned, or if you want to before closing, that's fine. In that silence too, Sarah may say, oh, she's been in the closing from, I can't even tell you with these clients, like, oh my goodness. Elizabeth, let me get my cleaners over there. I will send my cleaners over and I'm going to make sure that that place is clean. Like, there is times as a listing agent, you are also going to say, you know what? I'm going to pay my cleaning lady $200 to come clean this house so we can get it closed. And then I can do a good service to the buyer and we can have a good transaction. So that would be what I would say. Expectations, broom swept clean, not that it's perfectly clean, and yet it should be, bathroom should be clean and such. We'll tell you as an agent, if you are in this for too long, and there's been many a times I've been over there with my own washcloth and my own spraying and cleaning stuff, and I'm cleaning a house myself as an agent because maybe early in my business I didn't have the money to pay the cleaning lady, right? So myself and my significant other was over there mopping floors and cleaning stuff up because I wanted it to be right for my client. So don't think that that doesn't happen and then that's not something that agents do. It's wonderful when you get to a point in your career where you can say, hey, can you please go over and clean such and such address for me? And you've given a lot, you know what I mean? You can do that, but that's realistic. Does that help answer the question? I know it's not a great answer the question, Serena, but that is the expectation, is broom swept clean, is that all the trash should be out and such, but it's not that they necessarily mop the floor. Same thing with nail holes. Like technically, if it's a bigger than a pencil hole, the back of like a pencil eraser, they should fill them. And it's just kind of one of those things that is kind of unclear. And it is something you can set an expectation. If it's something that's important to you, start setting that expectation way earlier in the process. If you don't want to write it into a contract because you're competing and you don't want to look like you're difficult buyers, I would recommend that. And yet when you're a week out from closing, hey, Sarah, I just calling, we're going to schedule our final walkthrough. Does Wednesday at 4 o'clock work for your sellers? Awesome. We're going to talk about a couple other things that you're going to want to ask for that final walkthrough, but you at that point would say, okay, great, Sarah, what's the plan for cleaning? Because I just want to set the expectation. My people are expecting that they're going to do a clean, and I just didn't know what does that look like. And the more you can get ahead of it, the better too, if it's something that you're concerned with. A lot of times when you're seeing someone's house and you're viewed a home, if they keep their house clean, chances of them cleaning it usually is pretty good, but not always.
Good.
So
Yeah.
this also stands when the property is being sold like as is, you're still expect for it to be broom swept, cleaned.
Correct. Yep. The only way that it would not be that it's supposed to get everything out, guys. So it's supposed to be empty, and it's okay for you to be, again, we talked about the cinder blocks. It's okay for you to say, hey, there's cinder blocks in the garage that we do not want to have to get rid of. Or there's a bunch of extra wood that my clients don't want. It's okay for you to say like, hey, it's not okay for them to just leave that behind, kind of a thing. But yes, even in as is, it's expected that it be broom swept clean and empty.
What about as far as like tires in the yard and like stuff like that? Does that count?
Yeah, well, is it like made into does it look like it was a planter? Like, I guess that are all things like, remember we talked about when we were writing the contract, you're going to write about inclusions and exclusions. So if it's a property where you've got a lot of stuff out in the yard and you're a little unsure, I mean, we're not judging people, but we are getting context clues on how like they might show up day before closing with their side of the deal. So stuff like that you might write into the contract. Otherwise, it is very much so. You're not doing your final walkthrough the day before with a house like that. You're probably going to say, hey, is it okay? We're closing Thursday at 10 a.m. Sarah. Is it okay for us to do our final walkthrough on Monday at 4 o'clock? Would that be a big deal? And then I can just run through real quick right before closing on behalf of myself, on behalf of my buyers. But that way, if you think there's going to be a lot of issues, you're going on Monday. So you and the other agent have plenty of time to problem solve any of the problems that happen between then and Thursday's closing. If you think that that there might leave tires in the yard and that kind of a thing.
On how clean the fence is. Doesn't that building areas,
I think that to answer, he's saying, does it depend on like location, where it is and such?
yeah, it's different things.
I would say yes, but that's again where it's like you're reading your client, you're reading the house. So like if you went and looked at it and you're talking to your client and say, hey, are you concerned about like the level of cleanness that it's in right now? And like it's not like they're going to do a big, huge, deep clean between now and closing. So that's what I'm saying with setting expectations. Yes, on what the house is in each situation, no matter where it's located, and your client, right? So like matching those two things up when it comes to cleaning. So your final walkthrough, what you're going to ask for, and when you're writing your resolution, if you have repairs, if you put repairs in the initial contract, because when you write your resolution, you want to say seller to provide paid receipts no less than 3 days prior to closing, or no less than 4 days prior to closing. And the reason being is that you are going to reach out as the buyer's agent to the listing agent and say, hey, we had these 3 repairs. Could you send over the paid receipts for those, please? And that way you can take those to the final walkthrough with you and just show, look, the plumbing under the primary, sink got repaired. And here's an invoice for where they fixed the safety cables on the garage door. And here's the electrical invoice where they went in and replaced the main panel. So you want to make sure, the reason it's important to make sure that it's a paid invoice is if it's just an invoice and it's not paid, that's a problem. In the sense, you need to make sure that it's been paid for, right? Because if it's not been paid for and you close, that contractor is going to come back and say, where's my money? The seller has no incentive to do it. One of the things that can happen with that is, again, sometimes it is going to be paid out at closing. And so you're going to see that invoice paid on the settlement statement at closing. If that is the case, you want to again have that invoice way ahead of time so you can make sure your title company has it in plenty in advance and that you know that you're looking for it on the settlement statement at the closing appointment. Okay. Way that you get those different invoices, you might get it left on the kitchen counter for you, where they leave the one that the electrician scribbled out himself on the kitchen counter. If you take that, go back to the office, scan it, or use your phone and scan it to a PDF and share it with the other agent and keep a copy of it for yourself for your files. They also might send it over as a PDF to you through email. Okay, so any questions on how? Okay, one other thing. So you're going to say, Elizabeth, but I'm not an electrician. And I'm getting an invoice telling me that the main electrical panel was replaced. I don't know if the oversized breaker that was supposed to be replaced was replaced. I will tell you right now, every single time I went to a walkthrough, I'm like, here's the paid invoice. I'm not an electrician. Looks like maybe they did it. So one option your clients do have is to do a re-inspection. And so if they would like to pay for an inspector to come back out and re-inspect the property, typically it's between $75 and $100 for them to have someone come out and re-inspect stuff. The times, again, you as an agent are responsible for reading the situation. These sellers have been great. They're very detailed oriented. They used a reputable company that I'm, aware of, or kind of a thing, and your anxiety or your trust or your ability to make sure that the things did get done is higher, then maybe not. The times that you're like, man, these sellers have been kind of hooky the whole, a little bit weird the whole time, or there's a repair that was needed to be done on the roof, and I'm not going to climb up on the roof and make sure it was done. I'm going to have that inspector, suggest having the inspector come back out and re-inspect. I would say that out of 10 sales, maybe, or I would say even more than that, out of like maybe 30 sales, maybe one person would have a re-inspection. So it's not super common, and yet there's nothing wrong with them doing it. And a lot of times your final walkthrough will very well. Your clients are going to show up. They're not going to have the list of things that they're supposed to be looking for. And so again, it's your responsibility to be there. I would recommend having a copy of the resolution so you see exactly which each item is. Again, you guys know I'm a paper person, so I often had it printed out or would have it on my iPad that I could go through. But they're going to be excited. They're thinking about, I just want to go through the house. We're moving this weekend. I'm so excited. And so oftentimes your job is to bring them back to the point of being there and to say, okay, great. So excited. You're really excited, Josh and Jessica. Like, let's go. Like, I'm going to turn around real quick and make sure that they, did that, what they're supposed to do down in the garage, and go up and see that the junction boxes got covered in that upstairs bedroom. And you've got the list, and you're going through and telling them, okay, like I went and verified and saw that the junction box got covered, and here's the receipt showing that roof repair got done. But that would be something to make sure that you're prepared for at a final walkthrough.
And I have a question about timing. So most of the time, in my experience, and I just had a few transactions, but they haven't moved out yet. They have until closing to move out the day before closing or whatever, because possession is usually at funding, or I got that day. I did have one situation where possession was the next day because they weren't moved out. So the final walkthrough, they're not moved out yet.
Right.
So it's hard to tell if there is a hole in the wall behind the couch or a red wine stain on the carpet, under the couch. If you get to possession day of closing and there is something like that, what recourse do you have, because you've already closed?
You don't have a whole lot, right? That's again when you're trying to be a team player and you want to. Now there's always small claims court where they were breach of contract, right? And hopefully the red stain on the carpet or something of that sort could be resolved. I had a case where it was a very interesting transaction, but they moved out, and where the bed was, unfortunately, it left a hole, but there's holes and scratches from the bed, right? And we didn't know that until they were gone. They were gone. They were in another state. So I got the phone call I was a listing agent. I got the phone call from the other agent going, what the heck? Like, these are deep gouges. Like, this is not okay. And it was another time, guys, you take a deep breath. This is a part of being an agent, is problem solving. A part of being an agent and getting that check at closing is that you are able to calmly come up with solutions and figure out how to help buyer and seller get to a resolution. I picked up the phone, called my seller and said, hey, you could have given me a heads up on the, like, you know, the behind the bed, like that's really fun. And he was like, hey, do you know somebody? Do you have somebody that could go fix it? Like, I'm so sorry. We were rushed. We were getting out. Like they, you know, like we were trying to get out of town. It's really late. Didn't want to interrupt you or like wake you. And I'm like, awesome. Yes, I have a painter. They went and patched it. He said, it's going to be $200. Can I send you a check? Yes. And we gave the buyer a check and we worked it out that way. Now, are there times that your seller's going to say, too bad, so sad, I closed, I'm out of here. And that's where you and the other agent have to work out whether you're going to take care of it, which I'm not a big fan of me paying for things as a listing agent, right? Or buyer's agent paying for things. And I encourage you not to run a business where you're asking the other agent to contribute to things. Exhaust getting your clients to either accept it is what it is, or seller take responsibility that yes, you have some damage to the walls after you moved out. And really, really exhaust that before you start offering up your commission to say, hey, I'll contribute to a painter going over and painting. Now, there are times where it does make most sense, and you'll know when those moments are, and you'll say, you know what, it's worth $100 to send somebody over. And yet there's also the opportunity if you're like, you know, I don't want to contribute to putting a new carpet in this kid's bedroom because there's fingernail polish all over the floor. And it would be like, okay, buyer's agent, I'm the listing agent, like this is what my seller is saying that they want to do, and I'm so sorry. You call Randy. Randy's going to talk you through this as your broker. That's his job. And yet you can say if they want to take them in too small, I mean, like it is what it is at that point. What I would say is like I said, sometimes you're doing a final walkthrough and then they don't get possession until right before, you know, or they right before closing. So you're not, that's that one house that was like really, it's okay for you. And oftentimes I was running by on the way to the title company for closing. I was running by the house one more time, even if they weren't all the way out, just to see how much progress had been made. That way, if we were there the day before and they said, oh, no, we'll be out by 4 o'clock closing tomorrow, like or 3 o'clock closing tomorrow. And I'd be like, I'll believe it when I see it. I'd be like, okay, cool, I'll just swing by. Because I wanted to make sure that there was a good amount of progress and that we really, and guys, there's going to be days that you show up and like, no, there's, you know, they're not anywhere near it. And then you go to closing, you have to talk to your buyers and say, guys, how do we want to handle this? Do we want to push closing? That's part of why we have closings on Thursdays or Wednesdays or whatnot. We don't do closings on Fridays. Because then as a buyer, your recourse is to say, hey guys, you said you were going to be out. Our closing appointment's at 4 o'clock. We funded the table, so we should be able to take possession. My agent Elizabeth has been talking, you know, like we've been talking to the other agent. They're all very aware and they're not performing as they should be. Do you buyers want to push closing? Do you want to make it to where we're closing tomorrow and we'll move your closing appointment to tomorrow at 3 o'clock? So they have time to actually get out before they get their money.
And so if you did a final walkthrough at 4 o'clock on Wednesday, your closing is Thursday morning, and there is a red line stain on the carpet, you could in fact say, hey, listing agent, I'm sorry, there's a red line stain. We're not gonna be able to close for you.
Yes.
Something needs to be done.
Yes, in a very calm, professional, I'm a team player way. Yes. I've talked to my clients. They don't have moving trucks lined up. They're actually not planning on moving in for a week. So they're completely fine with us moving this to next Tuesday if you want. And then, and in a kind, professional way. And then you go let listing agent come up with some, you know, work with their clients to figure out what they want to do. They may very well come back. I mean, I've got a carpet guy calls on the way here because he's putting carpet in. But that agent, that's part of why your vendors are so important. That agent may very well say, let me get my carpet guy. I mean, I've done it before where oh my God, stories. Went to a final walkthrough and a seller was very unhappy that a closing had gotten pushed because of loan problems. It was not the buyer's fault. And he claims that his dog had used the restroom all over the house, but we do not believe it was the dog. And we show up to the final walkthrough and the entire house had been, it was bad. Now, I have an amazing relationships with vendors that we had the carpet replaced within 48 hours and we were able to close. But again, I knew that this was like a sticky, hairy situation. So I did that final walkthrough with plenty of time in advance. But we got carpet replaced. Seller had to pay to replace the carpet. It was like, hey, bozo, that was not a good idea. So it's amazing, and prepare yourself for when you have your first couple of closings or for any of your closings to know that closing day may not, in that time between final walkthrough and closing, often is a little chaotic, not just because of the lender, but because there's like, hey, it's snowing and they're not able to actually get out when they think they were going to get out, or their movers were late. Do you know how many times movers are late? And it's not the seller's fault that they're not able to get out in the time that they thought they were gonna get out because the movers didn't show up at 3 like they were supposed to, and now they're trying to move them into. So like, you've got to be willing and ready to come to the table and be a team player and like, let me figure out how to help this out. I'll call some movers I have. Let me, kind of a thing.
So the seller
Yeah, I won't, you can read between the lines, I think. So, no, I tell you, it's real estate, y'all, like buckle up, like this is, and doing it in a professional manner to where you're not making a big deal out of it is important.
Be careful, you're scaring me with the cord.
I know, right? Me? Never. Never. I am totally smooth. Okay. So for a seller, what I would highly recommend, A, they're not at the final walkthrough. B, they do try to have things as clean as possible. If you can encourage your, and you've got an idea of what the cleaning plan is, so you can answer those questions. So as a buyer's agent, you're trying to be as proactive as possible. The email template I have, very much so. Let's do this. You guys get to see behind. Oh my goodness, all my stuff is like super. All right, I will send the email template. I don't have it. But basically it says these are the repairs that I need the receipts for, because I'm very proactive as a buyer's agent to say, hey, I want to make sure that I have these. Yeah, you're laughing at me. I got both cords on the floor here, right behind me. But I'm proactively as a buyer's agent saying, don't forget, these are the 4 things that we need receipts for, okay? And I'm saying, and we're doing our walkthrough at this time, kind of a thing. Again, it's just like when you write an offer, you're writing a counter offer. Try to make that email so it's super easy for that listing agent to just forward it on to their client. This is you taking control of the transaction and being a professional. Okay, as a listing agent, I am trying to get my client, I want to have an answer to when's the cleaning going to happen, what's the plan there, right? And or what's going to happen with all that paint was the basement. I remember there was a ton of paint that wasn't even from this house, kind of a thing, and like, so that I'm prepared to answer some of those questions. Okay. Any other questions when it comes to a final walkthrough? Super fun. Typically, I would say they take like maybe a half hour, if that. There's also times too when everybody shows up and wants to. I will totally share the email template. Yes. But there's times where everybody wants to show up too and chit chat and stuff. But on your schedule, I put it down for a half hour. I would schedule it for an hour with the listing agent, so that you've got a little wiggle room in case there is something that's, that's missing. And you're able to communicate from the house. If there's a bunch of stuff going on, feel free to take your photos, but like taking photos and sending photos is so incredibly helpful as a listing agent. When they say, well, are they gonna come get all this wood? How much wood is there? Like, oh, okay. And guys, seriously, the number of times that you yourself are over there putting wood in the back of your Camry to get the thing to closing, like, it's fun. It's the glamorous side of real estate. Okay. Moving on to the closing appointment. Guys, I'm gonna do this because I like want to share, but I don't want you to see my messy desktop. Because I tell people like, this is how you organize your drive. But when you change roles like 4 times, then it gets a little bit hairy. Oh, you guys, I'm such an idiot. There's one that says email templates. Did someone see that? And then they, no? Okay, email templates. Let's do this. Okay, back at it. You guys are like, why does she keep unplugging her computer? Okay, I will share my screen so everybody online can see too. So the final walkthrough to the listing agent, this is what that template looks like. All of them are pretty simple, guys. We would like to do our final walkthrough on this day and this time. Does that work for the sellers? Here's a list of repair receipts. Do you mind if we keep the key from the lockbox to provide the buyers at possession? So you will take that from the lock, and then close up the lockbox empty, right? But note that if there's more work that needs to be done and you're asking the listing agent to go in and do some stuff, don't take the key from the lockbox if it's her only way in or his only way in. The other thing to say about keys and garage door openers is always a good time to communicate to the listing agent. So they're leaving extra keys in the garage door openers on the kitchen counter, is that right? The number of times you get a phone call after closing of like, hey, where's the clicker? Like they said, there was 2 clickers. Where's the clicker? And then I just put on there what date they were to close and time. They should be funding immediately and plan to proceed with possession at this time and date. Please let me know if there's any other issues with any above. We are almost to the finish line, yippee. But very purposeful and strategic about putting those different dates and times in there so that everyone is clear on when we're taking possession. This is again, an email that goes out well in advance of closing. So like you're doing it a week in advance or 5 days in advance kind of a thing. Sound good?
So which one I have transaction coordinator? Typically, I mean, like, from a transaction coordinator.
Yeah, so this was an email template that I created myself and I used when I was a single agent. Alicia Meyer was my full-time assistant. So she was a transaction coordinator or a marketing coordinator. She did both for me. So she just took my templates and put her name at the bottom of it. Okay, so then the final to the buyer is where I say I'm attaching, here are the receipts for the repairs, here's the address. Your final walkthrough, feel free to keep, oh, I'm sorry, this is for me as a listing agent going to the buyer's agent. So here are the receipts for this address. Here, keep the key from the lockbox. We'll pick up the lockbox and sign on the day of closing or day before. And then these are just reminders to her to actually attach the receipts because they're in red. All right. Again, this was just very simple. Setting expectations with the seller, and you can come up with your own terms. I know it sounds stupid, and yet reminding them and putting it in writing when they are like trying to move out of their home and pack every belonging they have is helpful to where they can reference that instead of sending you another text message or phone call. Sound good? Okay. Yes. Yes. I have started on updating them after someone like I was updating them to, if I put them in Google, is that the best place to, like, does everyone use Google or no? Okay, you can copy and paste. But yes, these are all of them. Do you want me to just send you all, like, just give you guys access to all of them? So utilities, same thing too, is that you're communicating, your buyer should have been communicated before about utilities, but that way you're confirming with them that, hey, like, that was taken care of, because it's always a bad day.
And the transfer should be on day of possession, right? So if that is after closing, make sure you're telling them to put it in your name on possession.
Yeah.
Not-
If it's like a Sunday though, Krista, it's like, okay, bite the bullet. You use that as a negotiating term to let them have possession. I'd rather you not be the gas get turned off and us not have gas come Sunday when you're moving in. So just take it with, you know, it's kind of a, like, you do love that most of my answers are, it's situational.
Yeah.
Like pay attention to who your client is and like what the situation is and who you're working with, kind of a thing. Okay, so oftentimes this sounds stupid for having a email template for, but I constantly was sending the same information over and over again to my clients, and that's when I would trigger myself to create an email template. So I just created one basically saying on the listing agent. So as a listing agent, when it comes time for closing, your sellers, first of all, can close prior to the day of closing. I'm going to say it again in case you want to write it down. Sellers can close prior to the day of closing. So you typically want your seller to close first and then your buyer, but you can schedule your seller's closing the week before. You can schedule it 4 days before. Sometimes for sellers, it's going to take some of the heat out of the moment if they get to do that. Note, if you're scheduling your your closing 4 days before closing, you want to be in communication with your title company too to say, are there going to be any docs that need to be notarized, or can they e-sign any of those? Because sometimes trailing documents will come from the lender like day of. A lot of times those can be electronically signed, and it is a lot easier for your sellers to come into closing and take care of that 4 days prior to closing. A seller's appointment for closing is going to be maybe 30 minutes if that. There's not a whole lot of documents they sign at closing. They're going to sign a warranty deed, transferring it to the buyers. They're going to sign the final settlement statement, which we'll take a peek at here in just a second. And then they're going to sign some stuff that says, they're going to sign it like 4 times. If there's anything we failed to get signed today, I'm going to cooperate and come back and sign it. I promise to come back and cooperate and come back and sign it. The other piece that they are going to sign is if they're receiving proceeds, how they would like to receive those proceeds. So typically, most sellers are going to want that money wired into their bank account. If they ask you what you would recommend, I would recommend wiring, because a lot of times if it's a larger sum, it's a bigger check, the bank's going to hold that bigger check for a number of days. If it's wired, it's going to go in immediately to the account. So they're going to need their routing number and their account number if they want their funds wired to them. They'll also, obviously, and sometimes it is good, you see here that I'm putting that they'll want their driver's license. They need to have that with them. That's probably the only other thing to state. I would send out a email to them warning them that the title company was going to reach out to ask for the last four of their social to get a payoff. As a seller, they need to have a payoff on their loan so that they're not alarmed when the title company reached out to them. And then I'm just giving the address here again to them so that they know where to go and what their options are for scheduling that. And then I have a paragraph here, guys, too, because I'm trying to leave be proactive as much as my sellers, so I have less phone calls, text messages, that they leave extra keys, garage door openers, owner's manuals and such on the kitchen counter and the drawer in the kitchen. I did oftentimes ask my sellers to leave a note if there was anything particular about trash and recycling or about any neighbors, if they would want to leave a note to say, hey, this neighbor's really friendly and is really good about watching the house when you're out of town, or be careful not to mow too far into this neighbor on this side's yard because he's real particular. But it is helpful to have a little note left when the trash and recycling day is when you're moving. And just again, where I'm saying that they're going to keep the key from the lockbox to give the buyers at possession, and then what time possession is scheduled for. Most of the time when I was sending this out, I didn't know what time the buyers were scheduled to close at, so I would just send that out in a follow-up. Any questions?
If sellers close first, and you run a walkthrough and you find out there's something that needs to be addressed, and you haven't closed yet, you still have, the transaction might close till both parties close, right?
Until both people have signed the documents and the lender, if there's a lender involved, the lender has to review and make sure that the documents are okay, typically before they release funds.
Okay. So you still have negotiating power, even if the seller never closed, and you do.
Yes, yes. I'm gonna go back to where maybe then I can still, okay. So again, sellers closing appointments, super easy. If you want to bring a closing gift, totally okay. Not necessary, in my opinion. And yet a lot of people will bring a closing gift. I highly encourage you to be attending your closing appointments. It is like the final breakup. It is a way to end the relationship for them. You are really going to have nothing whatsoever to do while you're there. There's not anything for you to sign. You can come up with your own corny little jokes to say while you're watching, but a lot of times it's like waiting for them to photocopy the ID, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you guys and such. There's really no point for you to be there other than high customer service to say, guys, I'm super excited for you, and answer any questions if there is any questions when it comes to the settlement statement. Okay. For buyers, we've talked about buyers closing appointments too. Your contract reads closing on or before. If there's ever a time your buyer wants to close before, you do have to have permission of the sellers to close before. It's not like your buyer can say, well, we're going to close on or before the 17th of March and then be like, we want to close on the 15th and expect that the sellers are going to be like, yeah, we'll close on the 15th. That's great. So does that make sense?
And the buyers cannot close before the seller.
They can. It's like, it's like, yeah. Most title companies don't want it to happen that way, but yes, they can. And they can all be closing at the same time, right? Like they can all be happening at the same time. Typically too, your seller, you already know it's your title company when you're the listing agent, because you usually get to guide them to a title company you prefer to work with. The buyer has the ability to either close at the title company of the listing agent or at one that you would recommend. So that makes a little bit of a difference too, because with your funding and some of that, where you've got two title companies involved, it might, you want to have a conversation with your title company, with your closer, and to say, do you know when we're funding? Do you know when the seller's closing and such? So basically, when it comes to scheduling, though, we've talked before, we're going to schedule our buyers' closings not on a Friday if we can avoid it. Thursday or before in the week. That way, if we have to push closing, we don't have to push it across the weekend, because then people get worked up about not being able to move. Your buyer's closing appointment, if it's a cash closing, it will be all of 10 minutes, if that, because they sign similar to the seller. They're going to sign a warranty deed. They're going to sign something, you know, for the title policy that the sellers do, but it's very simple. The HUD is very simple. So note that your cash closings are going to be super quick. If it's a lender involved, I would plan for 40 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour for those closings. And I would also take into consideration how chatty your clients are and how chatty you are. So my title company got to know me well, because as you guys can tell, I'm a chatty person. And even if they were done in 30 minutes or 35 minutes, they'd leave us in the room and we would chat more before, you know, we left or whatever. And I tried to be respectful of the title company's time and not go past an hour in my own time. But note that 45 minutes to an hour is usually what it takes. Sometimes the buyers, so let's talk about time of day. So day of week, Thursday or before is ideal. Time of day. Ideally, if you want it to fund, wires only go out a couple times in a day. And the final wire typically goes out, I want to say 2 o'clock is the final wire. Talk to your title company. Again, you as an agent, this is a part of your job and why you get paid the money you get paid and why you're such a professional. Your job is to reach out to the title company and say, when is your last wire? If we close at 2 o'clock, does that give you time to fund this same day and get wires out to the sellers if we close at 2 o'clock? The title company is going to say, yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, we could, yeah, that'll 2 o'clock will be just fine. We'll wire it out at 3 as long as we have no issues getting documents. Does that make sense? So right now I'm going over the, like, everything's smooth and beautiful. You've had clear to close for like a week. So documents are going to be there just fine. But it's okay for you to say, when's your last wire? And that's one of the questions, even when things get crazy. So I would highly recommend that you're doing your closings before 1 o'clock if possible, or everybody's under the expectation that if we close at 4, either it's funding immediately, and that is a possibility. Some lenders fund at the table, meaning as soon as the documents are signed, they allow funds to be released. And so those are clarifying questions that you want to make sure everyone's on the same page with. Your client's buyer, or your client's the seller, the listing agent, buyer's agent, title companies are all on board on what we're considering funding and when that's going to occur. As far as time of day, so earlier in the day, as far as like how many times it gets pushed around because the lender doesn't quite have docs done, and you're supposed to close at 9 a.m. or you're supposed to close at 10 a.m. and you get a phone call of, I haven't seen any docs, it's 8 a.m. and I haven't seen any docs from the title company. What the title company is trying to tell you is that you may have gotten your clear to close the night before from the lender and everybody's excited and like, yes, it's going to happen tomorrow at 10 a.m. We're so excited. But that lender still has to, they got clear to close, but they have to send the file to their closing department to draft up all of the documents that the buyer is going to sign. Depending on who the lender is and how big they are and how many files there are, sometimes that can happen in 40 minutes. Sometimes that takes 4 hours. And again, it's where working with a local lender that you've got a little more pull with, that your local lender can say, yo, put me in the top of the line. Like, we're supposed to be closing at 10 is a lot easier than calling US Bank and saying, hey, your closing department's had that for 3 hours. You know where we're at with the closing docs? Like, is there anybody working on it? Could you check on it, kind of a thing? But that's why they mean, like, what do you mean we got clear to close? It's because once you get clear to close, like, that lender has to send the file to the closing department to type up all the documents. And then they send that over to the title company. Does that make sense? One of the other things, so not just the signed documents, and it's something that hopefully has been going on for a while, and it's a part of the clear to close, is the title company is going to put together a settlement statement. And I was prepared, guys, and pulled this up before we got started. So, oh, just kidding. Kidding. How are you guys doing? Okay. I know this is a really glamorous one. All right, here we go. Okay, so the settlement statement can be done a couple different ways. Let's see, this has both of them? No. So they have to go back and forth between the lender and the title company. And if there's two title companies involved, the two title companies go back and forth to make sure this form, they both have it the same way. Because one title company is going to make theirs and the other title company is going to make theirs, and they have to match up. And so like the buyer's title company is working with the lender to say, hey, do we have all your fees on here correct? Is this like the purchase price and everything you've got correct? Is the commission all adding up consistently? So basically, that is another document that that's going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. The reason you want to stay on top of your lender and work with someone that is going to make sure that the clear to close happens way in advance is so that this isn't all like the 11th hour and chaos and craziness. Your expectation, if you're working with a lender and if your clients have done what they're supposed to do to get documents to them on time, is that you should be able to review this with your lender and your title company 3 days prior to closing, so that everybody knows all the fees are on there, your commission's on there, everything's great. Okay. A lot of times, or sometimes, guys, it is the 11th hour because we got clear to close last night and now it's 10 a.m. and like, oh no, okay, now we're going to push our closing to 1 p.m. and you still haven't seen a settlement statement and to review. Okay. And it's okay for you to be persistent in a kind way to your title person. Do you have that yet? Can I take a look at that? I don't want to be looking at it when I walk in the door. There were times that I walked into a closing and my clients are closing at 1 o'clock and it's been one of these crazy ones. And they'd be like, hey, Kristen. And I'd go back to Kristen and I would look at it before she walked into the room. And I was reviewing it right before they saw it, but I never wanted to review it at the table. Does that make sense? Because if there's something missing, you can be like, oh, that home warranty isn't on there. Go get put the home warranty on there like that. That's not on there. Or my $395 fee is not on there. Let's make sure we get that on there, kind of a thing. Cool, kind of. So that way it looks like more professional than, oh wait, I'm looking at this while you guys are signing it, kind of a thing. Okay, any questions there? Thanks, John. Okay, so closing is a little bit fun and chaotic, and let's go. Is it okay if we go through the settlement statement a little bit? Okay, there's a couple of different ways that they do it. Sometimes you've got it where you've got the buyer and the seller on the same side. Let me see. I'm going to stop sharing here and see if I can find. We went and had it pulled up before, didn't we? Thank you for your patience, y'all. Oh, I know, because I have to do it on Dropbox because that's where all my files are. There you go. See, I was a very organized person at one point. Okay. So this is another one that you might see. Typically, you are only going to see your client's side of the settlement statement. You're not going to see both. There are times where they'll have them side by side. So you're going to see what the seller's going to be getting as proceeds, and the seller might see where how much the buyer's bringing. A lot of times title companies try to do it in this way that they're not seeing each other's, because sometimes the buyer is going to get like really, interested in the fact like, oh, so the seller is getting $210,000 in proceeds. Interesting, because they weren't willing to come off that extra little $7,000, kind of a thing. But okay, basically you've got up at the top the file number and some information about the title company. You have the property address, the buyer, the seller, the lender. So Community Mortgage was the lender for this buyer. Settlement date, which would be the day of closing. Disbursement day is the day that it was funded. And then you're going to come down to the bottom here. So we're looking at it as the seller. This is my client was the seller. So it's going to say credit of $480,000, which was the sales price. This is the owner's policy. So he has to provide, as a seller, you have to provide clear title to the buyer. So he's getting charged there for the owner's policy and then the title search. In Missouri, it's broken out into 2 numbers. The next line here is going to be a proration for the taxes. So as you can see, we were closing on the 3rd of April. So our proration is going to be from January 1st to April 3rd. And then this is the total amount for the yearly taxes, 7565. So basically the purpose of that is, and we do this on our estimated proceeds worksheet, is that at the end of the year, the buyer has all the money in their escrow account to take care of the taxes. And since the seller owned it from January 1st to April 3rd, he needed to provide them the money for that. Note that as a listing agent, like to tell your buyer, and I often would remind, especially when this number got big, because if you can imagine if a seller is giving a credit for taxes, the taxes are $7,500 and we're closing in November, that's a pretty big chunk of change, right? Like, I mean, 1,900 is nothing to sneeze at. But I often would sometimes interject if the title company didn't and say, and remind you guys, we talked about this before, you're going to get that back out of your escrow account within 30 days after closing. So note that amount does come back, but it's a number to verify. There is a closing protection letter. And so unfortunately in Missouri, it is required. Kansas is optional, I believe. But both, if there's two title companies, both title companies have to have a closing protection letter. Basically, the closing protection letter just states that the title company is not going to run off the funds of the transaction. It's really silly, and I think it's another way for them to make money. Not the title company, the people the title company have to give the money to. Then the next section, which is super important, guys, is the commission section. So here you're going to see both of them are getting charged to the seller. And the buyer here in this case, so this first line was the buyer. Dan Odell was actually the buyer's agent on this transaction. So you see $14,400 to Keller Williams Realty Partners, which is the buyer's commission that the seller is paying. No, I know Dan charges a flat fee to his buyer. That's going to show up as a debit on the one that the buyer signs. Does that make sense? This is only the seller side. And then here you see where I'm going to verify as a listing agent, we've got the $14,400 and then a $315 flat fee that I charged as a listing agent, back in the day to the client. So I wanted, that was as a listing agent, that's like my eyes go here. Like, let's make sure that all of my commission is there and it's calculated properly. And so this was a cash deal, so it makes it super simple. Otherwise, as a seller, you're going to have a payoff amount. And I can go to the other one and show you that. But basically, it's showing his total debits of $32,000 and that he is going to be due $447,000. Let me show you the buyer side of this one. If you'd like, would that be helpful? You're like, I don't know, sure. So the exact same transaction, but on the buyer side of things. Oh, do it upside down. Okay, so this one does have both of them on there. Yay. Too bad I didn't click on it the first time. All right. So basically, is anyone accounting people in here? Did anyone take accounting in college besides me? Yeah, did you like it? No? Yeah, I thought I wanted to be an accountant and I got to 301 and I was like, I know I cannot do this every single day of my life. And I look to the left and look to the right. I'm like, you are not my people. But so I do enjoy the accounting. So debits and credits. So debit is going to be something they're charged. A credit is something that they're credited, if that's easy enough. And they have to offset each other here. So you've got the sales price I'm going to go down the buyer side this time. So the borrower buyer sales price. There's the deposit, the earnest deposit of $5,000. As a buyer's agent, you're wanting to make sure that that is correct, especially if there was additional deposit that you put down. The loan amount is how much they're taking the loan out for. This is the credit. So see how the seller is getting debited. They're getting debited the $1,900 and the buyer is getting credited $1,900. On the buyer side, that $1,900 goes towards all of their closing fees and that kind of stuff. But remember, we're going to be setting their escrow account up, so it kind of offsets. So then, which is right here. So this is where they're getting their escrow account set up as a buyer. Because as a buyer, you're going to have to, day of closing, pay for 1 year of homeowners insurance, and then you're going to set up your escrow account. So at the end of the year, you've got enough money to pay all the taxes. So you're going to do prepaid interest to cover your interest is this first section for, remember, and we talked about this before. Since we're closing on the 3rd of April, they had to pay from the 3rd of April to May 1st, all the interest, because their first mortgage payment, since it's paid in arrears, is not going to be due until June 1st. Remember, we talked about this? Anyone? Okay. So that's setting up, that's the prepaid interest and the amount. So if it was only 3 days, this would be a much smaller number, right? Instead of it being like what, 27 days? The next is a processing fee to community mortgage, and then an underwriting fee. So that's what the lender is charging. Those are lender fees. You've got an appraisal fee of $400. Since it's being debited here, guys, that means they didn't put down a deposit. Had they put down a deposit here, that $400 would be listed as a credit to the buyer. Does that make sense? Because they've already paid it. And then the credit report fee. You've got homeowners insurance of $515.16, and that's just the initial, or that's setting up the escrow account because it's only for 3 months worth. And then this is setting up the escrow for the taxes at 7 months at $420. Okay, it's really great that it took it to another page, guys. So on the second page, and I'm not sharing with any of the, am I sharing my screen, guys? I'm not, darn it. Candace, guys, I'm sorry. Okay. Great. So glad I haven't been sharing my screen. Love it. Now I am. I wasn't before. I know. That's okay. Yeah, there's still, when I looked over, there was still, yep. Sorry, guys. Okay. So you see where you started the homeowner's insurance, and you have the 3 months and the 7 months. And then you've got this next line that says aggregated adjustment. So they are only able to keep a certain amount of money in that escrow account. So they're forced to do that calculation, and then they're forced to do this adjustment so that it doesn't go over the amount they can keep in the account. Do not ask me how those calculations work. It's a really great question for your title person, not me. Here's where you've got the different fees to Platinum. So there's a lender's policy that they've got broken out here, and e-filing. Since this was a cash deal, these costs might be a little bit different. So e-filing, there's only 4 documents to file. So there was less to file here too, is why those costs. But there's going to be recording fees with the, that's down below, I apologize. Again, you see where we have our closing protection letter with both companies on both sides. So it's $100 a transaction. There's a settlement fee of $315 to Platinum Title. So that $315 is out of the borrower side. So that must be what the flat fee was for Odell for commission. And, oh, I'm sorry, no, settlement fee is what the title company charges. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm losing my mind. Okay. The title company charges a settlement fee of $315 to a buyer. And then the title search of $271, which is the lender's policy. Down below is where there are recording fees. The warranty fee of $24. This mortgage one's get a recording fee is based on the number of pages. You do also sometimes have things on here, guys, for the transfer into the HOA. So that's what this $95 is. That's common. And then this is the first year of homeowners insurance of $2,000 that the buyer is being charged. And then the credits here are credits from the aggregated adjustment, the sellers, all of their credits are added up at the bottom here. There's a lender credit, I guess, $2,200 as well. So then it all shakes out. It says that the buyer was supposed to bring $94,000 to closing, which included their down payment and their closing cost. Makes sense? Yes, no? If you want to practice this before one of your closings, bring it, come get on my calendar, and I'm happy to walk through it with you so that you feel comfortable making sure that it says what it's supposed to say. So the 395, great question. The 395 would be a part of where we saw that commission, this real estate commission. So it would read here 14,400 plus 395. And so that would show up here. Great question. Or for the buyer, it would show up on the buyer side as being charged. Okay. I mean, that's the closing appointment. It's a lot of like play-by-play, and when you have your first closing, it is a little bit of chaos, and yet communicating regularly with your title company, like they're used to it. Giving yourself plenty of grace. I would say your first couple ones, maybe shoot for a 10 a.m. closing if you're, and it's again where we're as an agent, working on our schedule so that we aren't trying to do an 8 o'clock closing for our first one. Might be nice to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. Like I said before, you're picking up your sign in your lockbox. Try to do that before closing. Sellers get weird where all of a sudden they're trying to be helpful and they pull your sign and they pull it in their house. And you got to coordinate going and getting it from their house, inside their house, or they put it on the side of the house or that kind of a thing. From here, title company sends a copy of the settlement statement signed by all parties to you via email, but they also send it with your commission check to the market center. And like, you're like, oh, wait, this is sounding good, commission check. And so then the commission check is received by the market center with the settlement statement. They review to make sure that the file is in compliance. And if it is in compliance, then they process it and you'll receive direct deposit as long as you have that set up for your commission. So it's and so your company dollar and all of those things in royalty, $395 will come out at the market center, and then you get the balance of that. Typically, turnaround time for that, depending on the title company. Some title companies, if it's a smaller title company, they will actually send it through US mail. Blows my mind. Most of them will overnight it. So most will overnight and it's coming from the buyer's title company, but most of them will overnight it to the office. So they'll receive it typically the next day. It is okay for you to ask that question before you leave the title company. Just out of curiosity, do you know like when this will be sent out and I can tell my office to expect it? I mean, that doesn't sound desperate, like I need a paycheck. And there's times where it's like, yo, it'd be great to have a deposit in my account. I just want to stay on top of this. I'm not trying to be crazy. I'm just trying to set expectations. Is there a time in which I could let my office know to expect that? The other option you would have is some title companies will allow you to deliver that to your office on their behalf. And so you can always say to your title company, hey, super excited. It's like one of my first, like just so excited for the deposit. I'd be more than happy to take that over to my office and hand it over to them. And sometimes that can, hey, that's why Platinum being right there is, and I will tell you that is exactly how it happens on the plaza. I know, and I have no doubt here that they just walk it over and hand it to them. There's been times where something closes at 1 o'clock and we're getting the check at 2:15 and it's being deposited same day. I know in the plaza, we really pride ourselves on that. I don't have a whole lot of insight into that here yet. And yet I have a feeling it's very similar, but that would be the only thing. There's sometimes when that check, like what I would say, and I think that they will appreciate it too. I know my MCA will appreciate it. Give people grace. If you closed at 4 o'clock on Friday and it was a crazy, crazy S show and it's like, oh my God, thank God we closed, but then it didn't fund until, you know, Monday, late Monday. And so maybe the check didn't go out in the mail until Tuesday morning. Give the market center grace. Like they're getting the check on Wednesday, maybe, right? And so you can't get mad at them that you're not getting a deposit in your account when like, let's look at the whole story of everything, right? And it's okay for you again, like to say, hey, I just wanted to follow up title company when that check went out, kind of a thing. But know that that sometimes is a reason why commissions take longer to get deposited. Otherwise, we do try to turn them around as quick as possible.
One other question, typically, for a buyer's agent, you can use whatever title company you want, unless it's new construction.
And relo. And a lot of the times relo. That's also a way to be competitive too, if you want. I would just be careful on what title companies you're doing that with. I enjoyed having my title person. My admin and them worked well together and we knew what the system was. I knew how they were going to treat my clients and with that expectation that day of closing, because it's a big deal. That closing appointment's a huge deal. It's like the final, and it can leave a really good taste in their mouth and it can leave a really bad taste in their mouth. If they're like, none of the documents were right and I didn't get my money like for forever, like it's kind of a thing. So answer your question. Yes, you can use any title company you want. It does sometimes complicate things because remember how we had to have the title companies talking to each other to create that balance sheet basically. So sometimes that can slow things down a little bit and the transfer of money a little bit. But I often would outweigh the pros and the cons. Do I want to work with someone I have no idea who it is at blank title that I've never worked with before? And I don't know what, like if I need to move a closing around because some craziness happened at the last, like I can't pull any strings over at blank title. I don't know blank title, right? So that was like one of the pros to working with one that I was comfortable with and I knew. I also don't know if blank title puts their commission checks in the mail, or if blank title is going to bring it to my attention that there's something on the title policy. when I worked with the same title people, I knew that they'd be like, hey, Elizabeth, there's a lien. It's from like 13 years ago. We don't think it's a big deal. We're pulling it up. It should be, it's no big deal. We just want to bring it to your attention so that if you saw it on there, you would know of it, right? So it kind of like took a little weight off of me. So that'd be the only thing, and that closing protection letter. So your client's gonna pay $25 twice because of that. Would be the only other thing I would point out with it being two different ones.
I did just like, we said cash.
Yes, cash. Thank you, Andy. Yes, cash would be the same. So yeah, if it's a cash closing, if you could try to send it to your own title company and they're gonna say, hey, Elizabeth, thanks so much, but since it's cash, like, nope, we're not gonna get involved. That there's no money for them to make.
Title company and platinum.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's what I mean. And I know it sounds silly, but that's where like it was, I mean, your vendor, just as much as your lender, like I really didn't shake up my lender. I was meeting with an agent or someone that was getting into the business on the plaza a couple of weeks ago. And I did the tour and came back and was standing outside of title. And I was like, lender and title are the two vendors that like I kept tight and close. And I would have a couple lender options like we've talked about, but I really had one title person because it allowed me to go faster and be more efficient because I knew they were going to pick up their phone. I knew what it was going to look like when they did their ask for a payoff from my seller. Partly because I was like, hey, Margaret, can you send out an email template a little bit like this to the clients? Because that would help set expectations of what they need to get you and such. But it was nice because I could get better at my job knowing that like that was one thing that was just smooth in the whole process instead of now I'm working with somebody different who I don't know and I don't know what their process is or what their turnaround time is on stuff. Some title companies will not work on a file if it's too far down the road. So too, if you are going to move a closing up, if you wrote something because you're trying to be a competitive buyer and you're like, we'll give you 90 days to close, but we'll also close earlier if you want because we're super flexible and great buyers, pick us. If you are going to move that up from the 90-day close to let's say like a 35-day close, let the title company know, regardless of what title company, like you're going to want to make sure that they know that you're no longer at like 90 in line, you're at like 35 in line and they need to be working on your file. So, all right, fun times.
Thank you.
Happy Tuesday. All right,
Thank you for all of this.
I'm excited because yes, no, my pleasure, always. All right, good to see you guys online. Serena, Paola's, Connor, Candace.